Okay, let's jump into things. So hello everyone and welcome to the Scaling Your Marketing Strategy webinar. I'm Rachel Tyers, SVP of Partnerships at Okendo, and I am thrilled to be joined by Caleb Marshall, co-founder of Tropeaka, Andy Homan, founder of Process Creative, James Gearan, Strategic Tech Partner Manager at Klaviyo, and Scott Goodman, APAC Market Lead at Okendo. A couple of housekeeping items. We will have time for Q&A at the end, so feel free to message us with any questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. As a bonus for joining the webinar, we'll also be offering attendees their first 90 days of Okendo free, so feel free to reach out via the Okendo website and mention this webinar to claim that offer, or I will drop Scott's email in the chat and you can reach out to him directly. We will also be sending out a recording of this presentation in case anyone missed it or if you need to pop off early for meetings. So to start things off, I'd love to hear a bit more about each of your backgrounds and the companies you work with. So Caleb, over to you.
Great to be here today. So I'm Caleb, the CEO and co-founder of Tropeaka. We're an international health and wellness company that ships to over 70 countries around the world. We have distribution partners in 4 countries throughout Australia, New Zealand, UK, and Canada. And we're on a mission to help millions of people in their health. And we sell everything from high quality protein powders to certified organic superfoods, coffees, teas, BCAAs, bars, the whole box and dice. So it's a little about me.
Thank you very much, Caleb. Andy.
Morning, everyone. My name's Andy, and I'm the founder and creative director of Process Creative. We're a digital agency based in Redfern. We're best known for delivering strategy-led, experience-driven, custom-designed sites that are super memorable and connect with customers. We've been around for about 16 years and are proud Shopify Plus partners. We've also been really, really lucky to work with some incredible brands in that time, including Rolly, Victoria, Lark, Helly Hansen, Strangelove, Kirsten Ash, McTavish, Zitsticker, Tropeaka, and many more. I love this stuff, so more than happy for anyone to reach out to me if you're interested in talking about all things and anything e-com after today's webinar.
Thanks, Andy. I saw that Rolly site launch today and it looks epic. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, James, a little bit about you and your background and Klaviyo.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. My name's James. I look after technology partnerships for Klaviyo within APAC. For those of you that don't know Klaviyo, we are a unified customer platform. We help power email and SMS for a variety of different brands of various different sizes, from your top end of town right through to you're just starting a Shopify business and looking to communicate with your customers. I'm lucky that I get to work with Scott and the technology partners that are driving innovation locally. I'm also fortunate I used to get to speak with Andy in a previous life in a reviews and UGC app. So I certainly know the power of leveraging your customer voice, and I'm really happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, James. Thanks for being here. And Scott, last but not least.
Lucky last, beautiful. Hello, everyone. So I'm Scott. I'm the market lead for APAC at Okendo. I've been with the team here for more than 3.5 years now, which is a really exciting time. Okendo itself, we're a reviews and social proof platform that basically attempts to build a community, validate your products, and also influence your marketing strategy across a ripple of effects, SEO, retention, all these types of things. So very excited to talk today and specifically how we can help your marketing strategy.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Now, for the first question, I'd love to keep things broad. What do you think encompasses a strong high-level marketing strategy? James, maybe you can start things off there.
Yeah, I'd love to. Great question. And I think it's important to recognize that brands at various different points in their life cycle. So what we might see as a brilliant marketing strategy for a brand that's just starting out is obviously very different to a top end of town brand that's mature in their life cycle, strong customer base. But I think there's 3 really important things to recognize, and especially when you're looking at mapping out your customer journey, is where they're at in that life cycle. We have a model that we use where we look at fundamentals, growth, and expansion. And it's also important to know that you need to get the fundamentals right. It's the most important thing when you're utilizing a tool or utilizing a marketing strategy, that you need to have fundamentals correct. So before moving into those exciting, big broad tech stacks with, collecting data from multiple sources to create highly tailored segmentation, you need to have the fundamentals right. Deliverability needs to be important. You need to have consent and GDPR following to ensure that you're communicating with customers that want to be communicated to. So recognizing where you're in that life cycle is really important, and not rushing to do something that you see your favorite brands doing. So if I look at someone in the expansion stage, which is obviously the exciting stage for Klaviyo, it's where we can really show our best practice. Looking at advanced segmentation and utilizing the data within your tech stack is always going to be the win. So just looking at how you're collecting data, where that data can be used in your customer journey, and ensuring that you're leveraging that to the best of its ability.
Really good tips. Thanks, James. Andy, what would you add there?
I think at a high level, I think the most important thing is having a clear understanding of what your brand actually stands for and how it needs to present itself, and then delivering on that. I think everything else is kind of a secondary, or is really about executing on that vision. A strong marketing strategy is one that is intentional, has focus, and is consistent. It sounds obvious and easy, but it's not the case for a lot of brands who, I think, frankly, they get distracted. They get distracted by their competitors. They get distracted with gimmicks and trends, get distracted with way too much data. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but if you're constantly looking at what everybody else is doing or reacting to every shred of customer feedback, I think it's really, really easy to lose focus, and your brand can end up feeling a little bland, a little wishy-washy, and a little homogenized. So I guess that's what not to do. But the reality is there are very few truly unique must-have products out there. Most verticals are completely saturated. It's really the positioning and the experience where most brands differentiate. So you want to have real clarity around your purpose, your values, your target audience. And then you just want to make sure that your entire experience is distinctive and memorable. But most importantly, it just needs to be true to that brand vision right the way throughout the entire sales funnel, however sophisticated your tools or execution might be.
Right, for sure. Caleb, what's been your experience to, build out this strong high-level marketing strategy for Tropeaka?
Yeah, I mean, great answers by James and Andy. Spot on from kind of our perspective and where we went. One thing that I heard recently, just building on that, is brand experience, right? And Andy was talking about that just there, where it's the accumulation of UX, CX, and SX, right? So UX, user experience, how are people actually interacting with your website? Is it easy? Do they feel a sense of brand within the website? Like Andy said, blands before, right? Like the emergence of blands over the last number of years, but actually bringing out personality in your brand is so important. And then is the website converting? And then you've got CX, which starts from actually product, right? You can have a great high level strategy, but if you've got a crap product, then good luck, right? So go back to the drawing board. Doesn't matter what app or technology partner you use if your product sucks. So really understand the customer. You can do that through surveys, post-purchase surveys, pre-surveys, to actually understand what product fits their needs. And then you've got, and then with CX, obviously multiple touch points is so key. Now you can only start with as a bootstrap startup with a few, but working towards getting live chat, email marketing, customer, if it's Gorgeous or Zendesk or something in your actual your email, then everything from DMs on social, and even replies via SMS marketing. So having really strong CX. And then SX, which is your social experience. How do you make a customer feel, or a potential customer feel, through the content that you put out on social? And then how does that tie into CX? How are you interacting with customers in the actual comment section? And how do you make them feel? And are you allowing them to express their values through your brand? So understanding that on a high level is really important, and you can't do it all at once. So if you're new to this, be patient and do one thing well at a time. And then just a quick last note, we can talk high level, but it also goes back to things you learned in high school in business, the 4 Ps, product, price, promotion, place. You can get real fancy, but you need to be able to nail them as well. Have a great product, make sure you figure out what pricing it needs to be at. And there's different ways you can do that through split testing. promotion, are you actually promoting to the customer in the right place where they hang out? And are you speaking their language, or are you thinking that your customer is someone who isn't actually your customer? And then place, what's your distribution channels? Like, there's obviously the rise of omni-channel experiences. So like, should you also be in retail as well as on Amazon, eBay, and have your Shopify store? So there's a lot to consider there.
All right. That takes me back. I haven't heard anyone mention the 4 Ps for a while, but you're totally right, Caleb. Scott, what would you add in there?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very
Oh,
in-depth, holistic. You're all good? Yeah. That was a very holistic answer, in-depth. I think that was fabulous. I'll essentially just be echoing a lot of that in a few different ways. So I think one, marketing strategy is always going to be different to you and your brand. I think you need to be truly confident in your product, and you need to know that not everyone is looking to buy it. So that means you need to identify your own ideal customer profile and really hone your efforts on that person. Don't try to speak to everyone, sell your product to everyone, target that niche, if I may, and then be understanding of, you have this target profile, where are they consuming that media? As Caleb said, what is my pricing for that people? Is it premium or is it competitive? And also be true to yourself about whether that product is a need or a want, because that will definitely distinguish how you the messaging in your content or promotions.
For sure. Now, Andy, how does website design play a role in the overall marketing strategy for an e-commerce brand?
I think if it's an e-commerce brand, then I think the site is the most important thing. I mean, you can have the most brilliant ad campaign or social creative, but ultimately they're just driving traffic through to the store. So if the customer isn't presented with an amazing experience, they're going to go elsewhere, like game over. So I guess that begs the question is like, how do you design an incredible experience? And it's a really tough one. I think it's probably best answered almost by starting at the finishing line. Like, how do you want somebody to feel when they make a purchase from you or encounter your brand? Like, what emotions are they experiencing? And then you can think about all the ways to go about kind of reverse engineering that response. And this is where consumer or behavioral psychology is really, really important. Like, we're not nearly as rational as we'd like to think we are when we're making purchasing decisions. They're largely driven by the limbic part of our brain, the same part of our brain that's responsible for governing our emotions. And then once you've got all that locked in, you just want to be strategic and consider what needs to be communicated when and to whom at the various different stages of the purchasing life cycle. The online experience is where you kind of bring all of that together through storytelling for those who might be new to the brand, maybe with a little bit of social proof to get those over the line who might be at the consideration phase, through to some well thought out post-purchasing messaging, encouraging customers to continue their journey with the brand like post-purchase.
Makes sense. Scott, what would your advice be there?
Absolutely, as kind of echoing that, website is the most important. My metaphor, or how I like to think of a website, is it's like walking into your home. You build this website, you style this website, and hopefully you have others admire it. And that's exactly what I do with my home. And I think that's an exact kind of parallel that is drawn. So when we think about marketing strategy and website design, there's probably 2 sides to that perspective. The first one is the actual design, the content on the website. And then the other side of that is the technical side, the technical design of the website. So both of those sides really take a lot of strategy and thinking to be optimized and to be powering like the best on the market. But for the brand side of things and even for the technical, that's why we have agencies like Process Creative who are the best in the business. That's why they win side of the day for their builds like Rolly Nation. It's because they can do things that make sure that your website is unique to you, and yet it's powering at complete technical optimizations for speed, for SEO, and it's built for success. So to loop it back really quickly and specifically all about marketing here, I think we just got to think about the funnel or the buying journey. You have the top of the funnel. How do we get more people in there from our website? It's about SEO. It's about making sure there's schema markup and rich snippets. For the middle of the funnel, it's all about on-site. It's all about website design, CRO, UX optimization. And then for the bottom of the funnel, it's all about collecting data and retargeting your previous buyers and customers and building a community off them. So that's a top line answer. You could spend hours talking about the nitty gritty of that, but yeah.
Thanks, Scott. Now, James, are there any brands you've worked with that stand out as having a great marketing strategy that scaled with their business?
Yeah, Klaviyo is fortunate that we work with some amazing brands. And I suppose that the ones that we're perhaps focusing on at the moment in terms of looking at best in practice would be a multi-channel approach. So we've historically come from an email product, and in the markets where we have SMS, which Australia is one of them, and we're absolutely delighted that we have two-way SMS in Australia now. It's a great conversation with brands and customers. But email will always be, or can be seen to always be, our bread and butter, and it is such a valuable channel, and we see an unbelievable return on investment for our customers. But SMS is like, especially in this region where it's not as well utilized by brands, you know, you're one of the few brands utilizing SMS. So if I look at brands that have got a good marketing strategy at this era of time in Australia, would be ones that are utilizing SMS. The Kalanakinis of the world, who have, you know, been fortunate to have global expansion, and they've done amazing things, and they utilize SMS brilliantly. It's not a channel that you should look at and always see the dollar figure over when you look at your analytics and go, we sent this SMS, we delivered brilliant revenue. We don't want to be communicating to our customers at all hours of the day using SMS because we know it's a worthwhile tool. Anything like that, use it sensibly, use it wisely, and make sure that the messaging resonates with customers. So yeah, shout out Kalanakinis, brilliant global expansion, fantastic utilization of Klaviyo as a platform, and Alex and the team do an amazing job.
Great. And Andy, do you have any great examples there?
Oh, well, obviously Tropeaka. Look, we started working with a brand called Zitsticker, an acne-oriented skincare brand targeting younger audiences back in, it was 2019 when we started working with them. And they first launched with a single SKU, and I think actually having that focus on a single product really helped them in the early days. They've since blown up and they've got, you know, maybe a dozen SKUs now, but importantly, they really understood their audience and offered a product and experience that certainly at the time of launch felt really, really unique. I think at the time, like many skincare or acne brands, felt a little dated, maybe a little sterile. They certainly weren't connecting with a lot of younger audiences. Zitsticker kind of flipped that upside down and really destigmatized acne. Like, they featured real customers from diverse backgrounds with imperfect faces, all set against vivid, colorful backgrounds that really, really got your attention. They got loads of traction on TikTok with quite entertaining influencer-driven content that totally resonated with their demographic. I guess a lot of similarities with what Caleb and his team are doing at Tropeaka. And that generated like just enough initial buzz and curiosity to get people through to the site, which itself like did a pretty good job, if I do say so, of holding your attention and delivers a really unique and memorable experience, which is super important because many customers don't purchase on their first visit. You kind of got to get in their head, and that's why that kind of emotional side of things is really, really important. They also like leveraged real results, testimonials, and user-generated content, all delivered by Okendo, of course, to further bolster social proof and minimize any conversion barriers. And finally, like the cheapest customer to market to is the one that you've already got, right? So Zitsticker did an amazing job of incentivizing their like subscription model to maximize lifetime value. It obviously helps that they had a product that really kind of naturally lends itself to a subscription-based model. But if it's something that makes sense for your brand, then I'd 100% go for it. Recurring revenues where it's at.
For sure. Now, Caleb, I'd love to hear from you. Which channels did Tropeaka focus on when you're first getting started to reach your audience?
Yeah, so we started out of our apartment, my housemate and I. So we had a $0 marketing budget in 2016 because we put all of our money in inventory in order to get going, as well as building out a website. So we had to be very creative, and it always comes down to the low-hanging fruit. In fact, even if you've got a lot of money to your name, I mean, starting with the low-hanging fruit is just a smart way to go about things. So, I mean, it's no coincidence, like we're talking with Klaviyo and Okendo, like they're both low-hanging fruit. Like you have a abandoned cart email series, like 98%, you might convert at 2% of consumers or customers when you're first starting out with your website. So 98% of them are leaving and a heap load of them are abandoning carts. So having an abandoned cart series, like you can get that up in Shopify in 30 minutes and you can get it up in Klaviyo in about the same time using their templates and building something out which is pretty sophisticated in a very quick way. When you get customers, then you want to build social proof. You want to build trust. Like it's a low-hanging fruit. And trust is everything when you're a new company. It's everything when you're a company our size as well. So we use Okendo and they're brilliant. And it allows someone to come to your website and you might push the conversion rate from 2% to 2.5% or 3%, who knows? And so it's about realizing an 80-20 principle. 20% of your marketing will produce 80% of the results. And it might be even more than that in the early days. Well, it probably is. And when you tie that into things like middle of funnel, bottom of funnel marketing, I mean, it's not as easy these days post iOS 14 when they got rid of like the sophistication of the pixel, but it still exists and it's still low-hanging fruit. For us, in the early days, influencers were a low-hanging fruit, right? In 2016. Now every man and his dog tries to run an influencer campaign. So unless you're fast fashion or beauty with a really large audience, like good luck with that when you first start out. So you've got to be creative. Now today, creative is probably organic TikTok content. You can grow really, really fast off the back of that. You can grow fast off the back of YouTube Shorts. So understanding where your market actually hangs out and then targeting them is the way to go.
Great advice. And you're right, it's always changing. You really have to keep a finger on the pulse to figure out which the next channel it's taking off is and how to best utilize it. Now, on the topic of changes, Scott, with the privacy landscape changing, what are the main touch points for brands to learn about their customers?
I'll mute myself there, sorry. Yeah, so exactly as Caleb just alluded to about 18 months ago, perhaps even longer, there was a heap of privacy changes made by Apple and probably more coming as well, where it significantly impacted both social media advertising and then also reporting and analytics within email and apps. So the first inclination basically from everyone was like, what do we do? How this is basically a fire that's happening that within the marketing team. But in reality, how we saw it at Okendo was it's a good thing. This forces brands to absolutely understand their customers. And so it takes the marketing team time to step back, assess the situation and go, great, okay, I can't rely on pixels and third-party tracking anymore to kind of work in this gray area of targeting. What's the next step? Now we have to actually collect data from our channels, and there's a wealth of different options and pathways there, which we'll delve into later. But now we can actually collect this data straight from the customer's mouths, straight from their demographics or their behavior patterns. And we start to use that to get better results. So not only is there going to be better results, but you're actually going to start owning this data as well. So then this retention play, this through owned data, through channels like Klaviyo, Okendo even starts to open up this world of options for you. And I get really excited by it. We're going to delve into it a little bit later on, but I'll just leave that there for now. I think the privacy changes are actually really beneficial in a very strange way.
Yeah, what are Klaviyo's recommendations there, James?
Yeah, I mean, touch on what Scott said, privacy should be if you ever communicate with customers, privacy should be at the top of your mind. Not just from, protecting yourself from a legal standpoint, but you will get better results from communicating with customers that want to be communicated. So it's not just protecting yourself, it's also you're going to have a better conversion, driving better revenue for the business and growth via communicating with the right people. I suppose for Klaviyo, like Okendo, this is a massive opportunity for good marketers and great marketers to communicate with their customers better. We've got over 250 integrations that plug into Klaviyo's database layer. So all these different touch points in various different parts of the marketing funnel, we bring all that into a timeline of activity onto your Klaviyo account. And that's really important to see that holistic view. And every opportunity that we have as a touch point is an opportunity to surprise and delight. It is also an opportunity for us to burn our customers and leave them dissatisfied. So we've got to see the opportunity and also be cautious of how we go about this. But one great, really, really easy way to ensure that we're answering this is when we're collecting consent, whether that be SMS or email consent, we have the opportunity to ask a question about what products our customers are interested in. You know, if you're a marketplace or if you're a retailer that sells multiple products, like having a welcome series that is splash marketed to every single customer is not going to be tailored in any way. So ask them what type of products or what they're particularly interested in, then tailor your welcome series based on that information. And that's like segmentation from the first opportunity we have to collect that consent and data. We are then communicating with relevant information, and that's going to be really valuable for the brand.
Right, it makes a huge difference when you're sending out relevant comms. Andy, what are your recommendations here?
Oh, I think James and Scott did such a good job of answering that question. I think the big challenge, of course, is that ads cost more and they're generally less effective. So we have to do more with less. And as Scott and James have said, I don't actually think it's the worst thing. It just means that brands are really forced to deliver an exceptional experience that has customers wanting to keep coming back. And I mean, isn't that what we should be doing anyway? You know? So I guess in terms of touch points, there's all the obvious ones that we've kind of already touched on, like email and SMS, lead capture, welcome series, product reviews, cart abandonment, chat and engagement. I think they're a goldmine for customer feedback. But we're also starting to see a lot more things like product quizzes, which I quite like as a great way of like generating zero-party customer data. You can also, of course, sync that feedback straight up into like something like Klaviyo to define customer segments, which you can then kind of use to drive quite nuanced customer journeys and personalized experiences. In terms of customer insights, though, I really love like post-purchase or exit surveys, things like Net Promoter Scores, CSAT or customer satisfaction. They take almost like no time to set up, and they're just continually providing invaluable customer feedback. I also really like the idea of building out some kind of community around your brand that facilitates two-way communication. Like we recently launched a site for another skincare brand. And they had a 6-week community program that was available to customers who purchased their products. They had like dermatologists following along with your progress in a forum where customers were like encouraged to post. It was a great like value add and differentiator, but it was also an incredible way for the brand to learn more about their customers. And I think finally, one of the best ways to learn more about your customers is just to talk to them. We interview customers on behalf of our clients all the time. I'd strongly recommend it. It's actually kind of fun.
Really interesting. I also love that you mentioned the post-purchase surveys, because I feel like as a consumer, I've got that post-purchase high and I'm much more likely to answer those surveys. Really smart. Caleb, what are the critical pieces of tech that brands should invest in the beginning of their e-commerce journey versus the ones that maybe they should hold off on until they've started to scale?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best decisions we made from the start was getting on Shopify. We had a few options there and we didn't really know what the best option was at the start, but we had a gut feeling that it was Shopify, and it's turned out to be an amazing decision. And it's an amazing decision for a few reasons. I mean, one of the biggest ones is when you're choosing your tech stack, you want to be able to use something that allows you to scale, right? And so we, for like $30 a month or something at the time, I don't know how much it costs now, but like we were able to get on Shopify and then stay on Shopify and not migrate to another platform as we turned into an 8-figure-a-year company. And you know, we had $1 million days and everything. So like there was a lot of scale that Shopify was able to handle, and it like is nothing compared to the 9-figure-a-year companies that are out there that are like the global dominating brands that are on Shopify as well, Shopify Plus. So having that is so important. Klaviyo, like I paid nothing when I first started pretty much, right? Now I pay Klaviyo an arm and a leg, not really, but I pay them a lot. And it makes me a lot of money. It makes me a lot more money, right? And so I'm happy paying a lot of money and scaling with apps that are incredibly effective. Okendo, like we're able to scale with them as well. So having a really good understanding of the ecosystem around the apps as well. Like Klaviyo is amazing, not just because it makes a lot of money, but it can do that because it's got really strong integrations, right? Okendo, Klaviyo have a really strong integration, which we use. Like there's a number of different elements. So you want to look at the ecosystem. Along with that, like you've got heaps of apps, you've got great designers and developers. We obviously use Process and they're amazing. So they're able to, we're able to scale with them as well. The other important thing, we just mentioned it then, is, and it ties back into iOS 14 and the other updates from Apple that came out since, is what they just mentioned, like Andy mentioned as well, like zero party data and first party data, and being really, really focused on collecting that information from day dot. You won't be able to collect a lot when you first start, but it's compound interest, right? You collect some now, collect more, and it compounds. And as you build your database and your wealth of information, it's compounding interest, not only because you can market to them, but you can have a deeper understanding of your customer when you have it at scale. So that's what I would recommend. And then just other little things like, yeah, the pixel is dead sort of, but like it's still effective. So make sure you got things like your pixel set up, CAPI, conversions API, things along those lines, which take like 2 seconds to do, but are really, really important.
That's a really good recommendation as well. Investing in tech that will scale with you and save you the headache of a migration later on, or, lost data that otherwise you would have been able to collect if you were using a better platform. I really like that insight, Caleb. Andy, what are the recommendations that you make to brands that you work with at Process?
I just want to touch on something that Caleb said that's super important, and that's making sure that all of your apps, your tech stack communicates with one another. I think the last thing you want is to have like an app ecosystem where everything's kind of in these little silos. So everything that we do at Process, we try to make sure that any kind of tech that we're recommending, it's going to be able to communicate with all the other apps that we've got in there. But in terms of like the ideal tech stack and things like that, I think it depends on the specific brand or their vertical, but there are certainly a few that pop up on most sites. First thing I'd actually do is set up GA4 or Google Analytics 4 straight from the get-go. It's a little tricky to get up and running on Shopify right now, as there's currently no native support. But I think the sooner you get that sorted out, the better, as far as I'm concerned. It's not really an app, but yeah. The next one would be Klaviyo or some kind of email SMS marketing platform. Even before the site's live, throw up a splash page and start building out that list immediately. If you're on Shopify, then I think Flow is really underutilized. It's now available for free on most Shopify plans. And it's really great when you're starting out for those little automations that can really make your life a little easier when you're just starting out and resources are a little tight. We all know how important social proof is and product reviews. So we just usually go ahead and get that installed right from the very get-go on every site. Gorgeous, or some kind of help desk platform can really help you stay on top of like customer feedback. And if you're just starting out, like there's probably going to be some bumps along the way with regards to your product or service offering. You're going to want to pounce on those fires immediately before customers start trashing your brand. So they're a great way of just kind of, being alerted to that. Things to hold off on. Well, I guess I just do my best to kind of avoid any unnecessary complexity. There's plenty of time to go nuts with things like, advanced merchandising, personalization, loyalty, and complex custom logic. But you really kind of want to establish a bit of a rhythm first before you start exploring those options a little later down the track.
For sure. So Andy touches on personalization. Scott, this is definitely a buzzword at the moment. How do you think brands that are first starting out should tackle personalization? And then how should more advanced brands use personalization to their advantage too?
Yeah, personalization is absolutely the buzzword. It has been a buzzword for, I'd say, 6 months. And so we've known about the need or the absolute desire for brands to be doing personalization. But I'm here to tell you today that I still don't think brands are doing it well enough. Even the Goliath of the e-commerce space are behind the 8 ball. So I think as a marketing strategy, personalization can be actioned from day one. It's just brands are not giving it enough thought. So, the first step always is to make sure you're collecting that data. That's absolutely, don't run before you can crawl. make sure you have data collection stations set up across different stages of the buyer journey, whether they're prospects to engage consumers, to buyers, to post-purchase people. All of those stages will hold different opportunities for data collection. And then basically from there, it's all about leveraging that data. And I think that's the key step. A lot of people have caught on that they need to collect data, but they haven't quite yet actually executed anything off that data to any meaningful potential. So for me, starting small, it could be as simple as product recommendations based on previous purchases. That's something which you can identify just by looking at order history. Straightforward, you don't need any apps off that. From there, you can go to retargeting campaigns based off social media. The more data that you have, the more in-depth your lookalike audiences can be. Then we go up to kind of mid-tier complexity. We start looking at loyalty programs. We start identifying our VRP customers. The catalog and product recommendations can become a lot more complex there. And then we go all the way up to kind of what I think is the gold standard of segmentation and personalization. And that's through that zero-party data, understanding demographics, behaviors, and really start personalizing, whether that's blog content, educational content, asking them feedback for product development, And so you can start to do things from day one, or you can start to do things at a personalized level. No matter who you are, you're a 9-figure brand, as Caleb said, there's things which you can do that I guarantee you're not doing today. I'm yet to see someone that is effectively doing it to something that wows me.
Right. Well, James, what are your tips? I know that Klaviyo has a few use cases that are very valuable here.
Yeah, I'd like to think of us as the leaders in personalization. I think it's important to start when looking at personalization in the data architecture. So mapping out your tech stack and your customer journey and where you can utilize different parts of that data within that customer journey. It's really important to look at the two segments that are most valuable. So our happiest and our most loyal customers, and then at the other end of that, our dissatisfied customers. And this can be as simple as, setting an automation up where 1 in 10 of your most dissatisfied customers has the opportunity to speak to someone in the business and relay why they're so dissatisfied. So looking at both of those two segments, I think personalization historically has come from personalizing someone's first name in an email. And people used to be like, oh, personalization tick box, we've ticked that one off. But it's so much more to that. As Scott mentioned, it's product, it's content, it's channel, and understanding from that data architecture and what we collect, what is the best for those customers. And the most important thing is to not set and forget, use dynamic flows to ingest data into Klaviyo to dynamically change the customer path that customer is on. What someone tells you their wants and feelings are, say, for instance, with Okendo 6 months ago, might not be how they feel about your product, where they're at in, their life. They might have just bought some post-baby products that is no longer relevant. Klaviyo is really beneficial at looking at the analytics of that data, helping you to set logic, and then pulling in flows, that dynamic data collection to change how that customer journey continues. So we could talk about personalization and the best use cases. I'd say reviews is probably one of the best ones. Your customers are actively telling you what they like and dislike. Loyalty, how we communicate to the first purchaser compared to someone that buys from you week in, week out, utilizing that. Some big brands that do it really well and have built loyalty platforms or loyalty programs that we basically look at best practice and follow, ensure that you can do that within even the smaller brands. And not to go on, but the last part of this is just because a big brand is doing really well doesn't mean that they're doing personalization really well. And just because a smaller brand isn't, doing $10 million of revenue every month, that doesn't mean that they've not got the most comprehensive personalized customer journey mapped out. Some smaller brands that we work with that have pulled in all the data from various different apps in their tech stack are doing unbelievably good things. So don't look at what the big brands are doing and say, oh, that's the way I need to go. Look at everyone that you see and what you like and take the best practice from all.
Right. I think there's still a lot of room for innovation here. So watch this space. Now, switching gears a little bit, Andy, what are some of the factors that brands have to consider when they start to think about internationalization?
Yeah, there's quite a few things that you probably want to consider. The first is whether you want to run like a single international store with like through a top level domain, or whether you want to set up separate stores in each region, like a US, a UK, or an Australian store. And there's pros and cons, like all things in digital, to either approach. If you're just tipping your toe into cross-border commerce, then I think it's probably best just to experiment by allowing customers to check out in their local currency. This keeps things simple. And you're only running one site and shipping from one location, again, reducing complexity. You can stick with this approach even if you want to do region-specific languages and pricing now using Shopify markets. It gets a little tricky, however, if you want to offer different products in specific countries or different hemispheres. Maybe you're a fashion apparel brand, you've got like different seasons. Also, if you want to have the like localized content, so different content in each region. That's when, at least for the time being, Shopify Plus is working on this at the moment, but at least for the time being, you're going to need a separate site for each region. And that can really impact your acquisition strategy as well, because you've got to promote multiple sites. But it does give you the most amount of flexibility. If you're going to ship locally, perhaps because you've got bulky products or trying to minimize shipping delays and or cost, you'll probably need to think about something like a 3PL or third-party logistics provider, or alternatively going and setting up your own warehouse in these different regions. And you'll also need to consider local legislation laws, particularly if you're selling any kind of restricted or prohibitive products. But also there's privacy regulations like GDPR in Europe, and in California you've got CCPA and Prop 65, which you have to kind of notify people if any of your products potentially have any kind of cancer-causing devices. That covers a lot more things than you'd think. But last but not least, there's customer support too. So you just want to make sure that you have adequate support mechanisms for people in different regions to reach out to you as well.
Right. And Caleb, what's been your experience with internationalizing?
Well, we did it back in 2017, 2018, and we really had to rely on Process here. They were brilliant with helping us figure out something that didn't have the infrastructure that it has today. So it's so much easier today with like Shopify Markets or even Global-e, which is an integrated platform with Shopify as well, where they do everything from like language to currencies to localization of a range of different things, taxes, shipping. So duties and taxes is a big one as well. So we use quite a and this is probably more suited to people with a larger business where you can be more granular and flexible with a range of different options, but it brings the complexity. Like we do everything from like IP stack to figure out where their IP is coming from for custom messaging and checkout. We have 3 front-end domains. We got a 4th website for wholesale international. We do duties and taxes specifically via Zonos, who are really good. We work with Reach Payments in terms of getting a much better deal on our foreign exchange rates. So there's a range of different like things that you can do to make the process very complex, but you also got to weigh up your time and opportunity cost. So when we did the internationalization with Process, there wasn't really too much opportunity cost because we had a large audience overseas, and we could say, okay, we can go complex here, and we got the partnership with Process that know what they're doing to make it a reality. Whereas today, if you're just starting out, you're better off like just going, probably, unless you're big or you're a medium-sized company, like just doing something like Shopify Markets where you can get up to scratch, not spend a heap load of money and time on trying to figure out the nitty-gritty details of how this works, as well as like the shipping logistics that come with it as well, which is very complicated, especially if you sell food like myself. So getting up to scratch and then realizing like, well, you can invest that time in actually building a big international audience. And then you come back and you say, well, how can I maybe save a bit on foreign exchange costs? How can I localize a little bit better? And doing it step by step as your business scales, I think is very, very wise.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And now I would like to take the opportunity to throw over to the audience. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. We did have a question come in from Himanshu. How to handle the filter plus pages from SEO perspective. Recently, we managed to remove those pages from robots.txt. Andy, can you assist there? Anyone can jump in here?
I'm not really sure. I probably need some more context. I probably wouldn't want to eliminate the filters per se, but I do recall we did something in and around this by coming up with specific collections for subcategories, which was a preferable strategy from an SEO perspective. We were actually working with a larger SEO consultant on that particular project, but sometimes I think the default filters on Shopify can be quite limiting for certain businesses with like really extensive product catalogs. So in those instances, sometimes it pays to look to things like Algolia or SearchSpring or something along those lines, and they kind of look after all that side of thing for you. But certainly, I think there's definitely some tricks around kind of like setting up each sub menu as a specific sub collection that might be helpful.
Thanks, Andy. And then I have a question here from Ambika. Can you elaborate on how advanced segmentation can be used in Klaviyo to increase my conversion rates?
Yeah, of course. So I think if you are a one product brand, slightly different, but let's take most retail brands or brands that offer various different products. Those products aren't suitable for everyone. And therefore, when we look to create personalized campaigns or personalized flows based on information that we collect from various different data points, different products and different contents go resonate with different customers. So it's quite easy. Klaviyo is designed as a pricing to, like, the more emails you send, the better for Klaviyo. But also our strategy is to send less emails. So like, it's quite contradictory. We want our brands to send less emails because they're going to resonate. So what you want to do is you want to filter as many customers that aren't going to resonate with that communication as possible. So you're gonna see if you send 100 emails and you can filter that down to 20. And this doesn't have to be at great scale, like having one customer, if you've only got 500 unsubscribe from your communication, is just as bad as having 1,000 on that scale. So sending less emails that resonate will drive better conversion by looking at how many emails you send. So your return on investment is going to be greater from an investment into Klaviyo's perspective, but you're also going to see an increase in conversion from a revenue perspective because you're selling the right products at the right time to the right people. Like it's quite simple when you break it down. Say, for instance, advertising or promoting a product to me that is a passion that I don't have. If someone sent me loads of the fishing tackle recommendations, I'm hopeless at fishing, never been. It's not going to resonate with me. That's the only example I could have thought about. I'm sure there was a lot better ones, but hopefully that helps. And please feel to reach out to me at james.gearin@klaviyo.com. Be more happy to elaborate and show you some examples of like advanced segmentation and how they work.
Thanks, James. And we've got a question here from Lexi. Does anyone have any recommendations for Shopify apps to capture data from your customer base and sync that over to Klaviyo easily? Scott, maybe you can jump in on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we take a step back and we look at reviews, which is what Okendo does. And you may say, great, people leave a 5-star rating with some text associated with it. But actually, that's not quite the case. We go so much more in depth than that. So when our customers leave reviews, they also leave their feedback on, how old are they? What's their body shape? What occasion did they wear this dress for? What's their skin concern, health goal? So in a way, that review capture that we provide is also the pathway to collect data and information about your customers. And through that integration, we actually, with Klaviyo, we pass that data into their platform. It sits against the customer profile. So if you look at Scott in Klaviyo, you'd say, okay, Scott's 30 years old. He has a health goal of losing weight or a skin concern of aging, and you can then start to segment off the back of that through your email or SMS campaigns. So Okendo certainly pioneers that. It's something we're really passionate about here, and we're going to be evolving and doubling down on that space very soon as well.
Thanks, Scott. And then Ambika also asked if there are any loyalty apps that we recommended. Andy, you have jumped in and added Loyalty Line here as a recommendation, which we at Okendo also love. Maybe you can share a few tips on how to optimize Loyalty Line for your loyalty program.
Yeah, sure. And maybe I'll just add to that one before as well with regards to product business and things like that. I think a lot of the time we build it up like completely custom because we're control freaks and we want to control the entire user experience. But I think Jebit is another one, and Octane AI I've seen a lot of people using. In terms of the loyalty program, I think this is a really interesting one. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think the main thing is if your approach to loyalty is just kind of discounted points, I think you're going to have lackluster results. I think you really need to be thinking about ways that you can, and it goes back to what I was saying before in terms of like your brand, your purpose, like how can you align your your loyalty program in and around that? So we work with this incredible brand called Earth, and they're all about URTH, and they're all about kind of making photography and camera products in the most sustainable, like they're all about reforestation and making the world a better place. So for their loyalty program, we kind of built that into the brand. It's called the Tree Society. And, you know, for every purchase that you make, they plant trees. And it really reinforces their brand ethos. Kind of what I was saying before, every step of your kind of, of the consumer funnel or purchase needs to be consistent right the way throughout. And then you move on to different tiers based on, you know, how many trees you've planted. I think they're over 5 million now. So it just kind of continually validates their purpose, their mission. But also think about like making it beyond just purely transactional, like give people an experience, like you should absolutely be, you know, for maybe the top 5% of your customers rolling out the red carpet, maybe they get access to exclusive events or products. Like how can you really kind of drive that experience side of things? Maybe they get access to a specific community for VIPs or something along those lines.
Yeah, great advice. And Caleb, would you add anything there?
Yeah, so we use Loyalty Line and we do exactly what Andy said. Like we don't just use it as an opportunity to give a discount. In fact, discounting your brand, like if that's all you're doing, you're really cheapening your brand over long term, especially with those that are loyal to you, which is what a loyalty program is, right? So we provide an opportunity for those on a certain tier level to have access to a VIP group that we have. We also give them access to perks, right? Which can be a little bit difficult to do at times. But one case that we had in the last week was we had a limited edition lean protein that sold out, and we then kept a few units on the side that were specific for our VIPs. We created a new product that was hidden that was a VIP access for that lean protein, and we gave them the opportunity to buy that when it had sold out. And we give them the opportunity as well to buy new products early and giving people early access as well as special deals. So the other thing I'll also add to that, and it's the reason I really like Loyalty Line, is you can make a loyalty program so much more effective by having really strong integrations, right? So Loyalty Line has a really good integration with Klaviyo, and we do some really cool things through, again, segmentation, deep segmentation to provide the right message through a flow at the right time. We also do really cool stuff where like we do the frequent flyer, like this is really complicated, but like we do the frequent flyer point kind of vibe on the top of our emails, which is just another touch of our loyalty program and where they stand in it. So deep segmentation, strong integrations are really important, and Loyalty Line does that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And keeping it top of mind in those emails, as well as making it feel individualized for that receiver. I think it goes a long way. Is there anything you'd add there, James? Any final words?
Yeah, I was just going to say from a loyalty perspective, Andy and Caleb hit the nail on the head, but creating an experience from loyalty, like these are your advocates, like discounting a product is not why they shop from you. I've seen brilliant loyalty schemes where if you're a cycling brand and you have, this amazing community on Strava, rewarding them for taking place in a sort of sponsored ride, find out what their passions are and try promote that rather than promoting and discounting of a brand or a points-based scheme. There's so much you can do, and also rewarding for UGC. You get to see your products in the real world used by happy customers. It's such an easy loyalty thing to set up. It takes 2 seconds to set up a reward for a collection of a UGC, and seeing your product out in the real world is probably what makes all of this worthwhile. You don't want to just see the numbers that come in, you want to see the impact that you're making on your customers, and I think that's a really easy one to set up as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I would like to say a big thank you to all of the panelists today. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. This has been really valuable. And I hope that everyone that joined the webinar has picked up a few actionable strategies that they can really take away and implement to help scale your brands. As a reminder, we will be sending out a recorder of this presentation, and we are offering your first 90 days for Okendo free. If you'd like to sign up to get ready for the holiday period, feel free to reach out via the Okendo website and mention this webinar. Otherwise, thank you again, everyone, and take care.
Bye now. See you later.